Now, the concept of a SharePoint site has drastically changed ever since everything went off and into the cloud. There are multiple ways to create sites, and the place from which you create the site often determines what you're going to get, specifically with features and functionality. So traditionally, and kind of the more classic SharePoint experience, when users needed a site, they would simply go to IT, and IT would go into a tool called Central Administration, something I'll show you, and they would create a site from there. Sometimes that's still, to my mind, a preferable way to do it because it prevents lots and lots and lots of sites from proliferating, all over your enterprise, and those sites may not even really be needed, or they weren't well thought through. There's no real great justification for them. So depending upon how your organization has configured SharePoint Online, this will determine what you're going to see. Now, I'm over here at one of our fairly standard sites. Those of you who have taken previous classes from us know that Aeromar is a fictitious company. It doesn't really exist, but it does exist for the sake of training, and these are real SharePoint sites, of course, that we're using in these courses. Now, here, this is not really where I would be creating a new site. If I mean kind of general SharePoint, we would want to do this from the app launcher, and I'll show you what that looks like. Before I switch over, I'd like you to notice the URL, aeromar.sharepoint.com. Individuals with elevated permissions will have something that looks like this. Your company name, in this case aeromar-admin.sharepoint.com. For the online version, this is what many of us still refer to as central administration. And I can do things here that not even many site owners can do. So like I said, the place from which you create determines what you're going to get. So let me go back, because this is where most people will be. They'll go to their app launcher and probably come down to SharePoint. And if you discover that you have a very trusting IT team, you will see a button up here at the top left that says Create Site. And from here you'll select Create, and you will be presented with two options to get started. A team site, which is used for collaboration, and then a communication site. So what's the difference? Well, a couple of things. First, when I say team site, don't think Microsoft Teams. I wish Microsoft would have thought this through a little more nicely. I do not mean Microsoft Teams. We can certainly look at that later. But the concept of a team site existed long before the product Microsoft Teams did, right? So that's rather an unfortunate coincidence in here. A communication site is basically a site that's designed for a one-way push of information. That's really it. There are several ways to do it, but you're getting information pushed out to people. You're not really expecting much by way of interaction. There's not really any need for uploading and downloading and customizing lists and so forth. You're simply publishing nicely arranged information. A team site is really the opposite. They typically can be smaller, but they're very highly interactive because their entire purpose is to be collaborating with multiple users on common pieces of information. Now, when you create from here, you are going to get something called a 365 group. So what in the world is this? Well, we're going to come back to this concept constantly. Microsoft wants ways to put hooks into the other Office apps in order to have a nice integrated experience. And so you always get something called a 365 group. And this group will appear in Outlook. It shows up in Planner. It shows up in a handful of other tools where this group can be needed. And so while on the one hand, it's kind of cool that I get all of this integration and I didn't even really ask for it, on the other hand, I have a limited set of features. I can't do everything I might normally do, like save libraries and lists as templates for further creation and so on. It's an exhaustive list, and so I will make sure that you all have a link to this in the PDF file that's going to accompany this course. Before I build any one of those, I'd like you to look up here. This is the more traditional experience which someone in IT would do. We would look at all the active sites within our organization, and then we would start from here. Now you might be thinking, well, Eric, I'm never going to get back that far. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to know what's available to you as site owners, and I'd like you to see it. I'm going to click Create, and you're going to be thinking, well, this looks familiar. Does. Notice how down here I get more options. These need to be explored. For the moment, I'm going to look at Team Site, just so you can see. I've got some advanced settings. We'll just back up for a moment. If I switch over to communication, we'll get to these in a moment. It's a little bit different. One of the advantages to communication sites, no matter how you create them, is that they tend to look much better on mobile devices than they do if you had done this some other way. Down below, I have other options. I'm going to click in down here. It doesn't look like I'm getting all that many options. I got some time zone settings and so forth. Here we are. We've also got one more tool in here. They call it the Migration Manager. This is comparatively new. For individuals who have been working with SharePoint on premises and then have decided, forget it, we're moving the whole thing into the cloud, they've got some fairly nice tools here for getting all that data off on premises and into a cloud-based environment. But once we start to work our way around out here, we're going to discover that there are more things we can do. There are going to be more templates to which we have access. So, going forward, we're going to try creating some of these.